As I told you in the last lecture, we don't want to initialize this private field inside this prem-mortgage method. The right place to initialize this is inside the constructor. However, we use constructors to initialize instance fields, but this calculator object is declared as a static field. And also, both these methods here are declared as static. So we want to move away from all these static members and have a proper object that has some state and some behavior around that state. As I will show you later in the course, we shouldn't use static fields and static members that often. They're troublesome. We should reserve them only for situations where we're dealing with a concept that should be only in a single place. In this case, we don't want this mortgage report class to have a single mortgage calculator. Perhaps in a real application, we want to have multiple windows. Each window displays a report, and each report can use a different calculator object with different values. So we don't want to have a single instance of this calculator object in memory. So let's convert this to an instance member. Once again, we press Ctrl-T. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't see the option for converting this field to an instance field, so we'll have to do it manually. Let's remove the static keyword. Obviously, now we have a breaking change because this static method cannot see our calculator object. So let's put the caret on the method name, press Ctrl-T, and convert this method to an instance method. Now we want to make sure that this method is going to be public. Let's refactor it. Beautiful. So here is where we're initializing our calculator field. Let's delete this line. So in this method, we're simply calling calculator.calculate mortgage. Now, note that these parameters are grayed out. We no longer need them because we encapsulated these values inside our calculator object. So there is no need to pass these parameters around. We haven't used them anywhere in this code. So let's change the signature of this method. We press Ctrl and T, change signature, and remove these parameters. Refactor, done. Now we need to make the same changes to the other method. So first we need to make it an instance method so it can access this private field. Convert to instance method. We want to make sure it's public. Refactor. Good. Now, these two parameters are grayed out. We haven't used them anywhere in this method, but this method needs the years parameter because it's used here on line 13. Now we can read this from our calculator object. So again, there is no need to pass these parameters around. So I'm going to change the signature of this method and remove all these parameters. Refactor, continue, good. Now here we have a compilation error because we don't know how to get the number of years. So let's prefix this with calculator dot. Now this is a private field in this object. We don't want to access it directly, so we should create a getter for it. Let's call that get years. Now this getter doesn't exist yet, but we can easily create it. Look at this light bulb. We can activate this using Alt and Enter. Here we have a few options. Create method, create property, which means it's going to create a getter and a setter, and create read-only property. This will only create a getter. Let's go with this. Now we are inside our mortgage calculator class. IntelliJ is confirming the return type of this method. Let's go with short. And here we have this return statement to return the value of the years field. Press enter to confirm. Good. Now back to our mortgage report. So we fixed this problem, but we have another compilation problem because this calculate balance method is no longer static. So here we need to replace this mortgage calculator class with our calculator object. We're almost done. The last step is to initialize this calculator field through a constructor. So we put the caret over here. We can activate this light bulb with Alt and Enter and ask IntelliJ to create a constructor to initialize this field. So let's go with that. There you go. So here's our constructor. This constructor has a calculator parameter, and we're initializing this calculator field using this object. So we have made several changes to this mortgage report class. We added a constructor. Now we need to find out where this class is used to make sure we don't have any compilation errors. So let's right-click on the class name and find usages. So this class is used twice in our main method. Let's take a look. There you go. So here we have a compilation error because we don't have a calculator object to pass through the constructor of the mortgage report class. But that is very easy to fix. So here we are reading these values from the console. We can simply create a calculator object, new mortgage calculator, and pass these three values: principal, annual interest, and years. Now, we pass this calculator object here. We should also fix these two lines. We don't need to create two new objects. Let's just create a report object, new mortgage report. We pass the calculator, and we replace these expressions with a reference to our report object, like this. So in our main method, first we read three values, then we create a calculator object, and finally we create a report and print it on a terminal.